slides. People can jump in as they come because we're at 8 o'clock now. Okay. Right. So here we go. So I want to talk a little bit about genetics here up front, where everyone's a little bit different. And I'm going to show you how you can kind of hack your genes a little bit. This is a little bit before we get into the holiday tips, because everyone has a little bit different genes based on your upbringing, what you're passed on by your parents. And there's one variation of a gene. You can burn 160 fewer calories than someone who doesn't have that. Not a huge deal, but it can add up. And then some in mice with nutrient timing, you just may burn less calories than the other person, but it's not the end of the world. That's what we're getting at here, okay? I'm going to show you how. All right, trains, iPhone is on, Shanley is on, so hopefully you guys are figuring out this tech stuff. I'm going to quickly go through metabolism before everyone jumps on for the holiday tips, just as a time filler, so to speak. So other factors that can contribute to your metabolism, okay? Brown fat. Some people are born with more of this, but if you work in cold environments, there's some other ways you can burn more calories simply by having brown fat, right? You don't want white fat, you want brown fat. It's more metabolically active. You can burn up to 400 calories more per day than people do without it. So that certainly exercise helps with that. Getting out in the cold and walking more. Heat therapy in the same token can do the same thing. Now the other one, the more important one, is sleep, right? If you're deprived of sleep consistently, you burn less calories, you get more hunger cravings. So if you guys can hear me, those who have just jumped on, type yes in the comment box, chat box, which you'll see on the bottom there, I think. New software, working our way through it. All right, so here are the factors that are within your control to some degree that can help you with your metabolism, so you set up yourself for success, right? The more lean muscle, the better. You're just going to have more higher BMR. Oh, what was that? Someone was talking. You should all be muted.
It was me. I'm sorry. I don't see a chat box.
Okay. I'll mute you for now. Let's see. It says, it comes up on the bottom for me. I don't know if you can see that or not, but top right, bottom right. Susan could type in there. No one else can. Sean, welcome. David is on as well as Bishop. So if you can see the chat box, type in there, great. If not, we're all good. So I'm just going to go through the slides. So, okay, yeah, you're right. It might be under the more section, Train. Now I see it. So, yeah, okay. Mary Louise is here. So I can see that on my screen now. It's sort of hidden for some people apparently, but anyway, metabolism. So 5 factors. Hot and cold therapy. You know, this is not going to make a massive difference. A little bit of a difference. Okay, someone's got to get muted here. I'm going to mute you, Sean. Okay, good. All right. Sleep. Make sure you're emphasizing sleep, gut health, and then lowering inflammation. So obviously eating the right foods, exercising consistently, not too much, not too little. And then you can use supplements like curcumin there too, but that is kind of a next level step. So I want to get into what you all came here for, which is how to survive the next few weeks in the best possible way. So how we're going to do that is simply by telling you what happens during a binge first off. And it's not all bad news. Because most often when you eat so much food in one sitting, very little of it is actually going to turn into body fat that sticks around, right? The scale weight's going to show your weight up, but that's a little bit misleading. So I'm going to show you why and explain that a bit tonight. Because if you overeat consistently day after day, 500 calories a day for a week, you might gain a pound of fat just by being in a calorie surplus. But it doesn't work the same way if you eat 3,500 extra calories in a single meal. There's a limit to how much your body can turn into fat at that point, right? So what it can't process, it tries to burn off. It might increase your neat, non-exercise activity. And then you're going to be rushing to the bathroom, fighting with your in-laws for the toilets because you're going to excrete more during this window of time and day after. So very little is fat, and that's a good thing because you're likely going to overindulge a bit on Christmas, maybe on New Year's Eve. If you isolate it to 2 or 3 days over the next month, it's really not going to be much of a factor. And I will show you kind of a system I use to completely minimize any damage. And we'll get into that here in a bit. All right. So here are the factors that contribute to a binge not actually affecting you that much. And one of it is just the thermic effect of that much food. You're going to be, that's when you get really hot after a big meal. It's because your body's trying to digest that. There is a calorie burn effect to that. So overeating increases energy expenditure through digestion alone, but it also, you're really bloated after, but it actually gets you moving more and reduces your hunger in the hours following and the day following. That it tends to balance out in the end, right? So the second piece is the glycogen storage. So your body has a lot of muscle. You have a lot of space to store carbs before it ever considers going into fat, right? So obviously the guy on the right, more muscle, he's burning more calories, he's more active. So a lot of what he eats goes to repair and simply the heat or storage that's involved in saving those carbs for a later date. Okay, so what we can do is kind of deplete those stores through diet and exercise on the day leading up to the feast. And that can help buffer the load, and I'll show you how in a sec here. And the other part that most people, assume wrong, they think this is fat, but it's just the water weight effect, right? So especially if it's a lot of salt, a lot of carbs, you store that in your muscle, in your liver, that the scale can go up 5-10 pounds the next day. So what we do is deplete that storage in the days leading up to it to reduce the fat you may or may not gain from it. And of course, emphasize protein in that meal. Start with turkey, load up on that, because that's going to be used by your muscles and it has a higher thermic effect. So here's the game plan quickly to minimize weight gain. You deplete glycogen. So those are those low carb days, sub 100 grams of carbs. Maybe you work out in conjunction with that. You're eating your meat first at that meal. And the other two factors, which aren't as fun, but minimizing alcohol, because typically when alcohol is in the picture, fat burning is halted. Like anything you eat is kind of hanging around a bit longer than it would because your body prioritizes alcohol. It wants to digest, and it's a toxin essentially. It wants to get rid of that. So the food you eat in conjunction with alcohol more likely to get stored the wrong way. So if all else fails, use the Autobahn strategy the next day where you just fast and eat low carbs. Okay? All right. Oops. Okay. Yeah, the chat is hard to find. All right. I was just responding to a question there. So that's it thus far. So what you have two options here essentially is chalk it up to one big meal, enjoy your food, get back up the next day. That works fine. Someone's mic is on. Sean, can you mute yourself? I think that's you. You're lighting up. Okay, I think I got you. All right, so that's option one, which I do recommend for the most of you if you've been good to this point. There's nothing wrong with enjoying a meal or two, right? That's a pretty important fact. The second option is where you are going to have a game plan going into that, where you eat sub 100 grams of carbs for 3 straight days, exercise prior, have a low carb meal going into it, and then you've got this big calorie deficit to fill up. So this is if you want to kind of wake up the next day and not be one step behind, maybe even be a step ahead. Okay. All right. So that's it. Those two options. Now we're talking drinking because I wanted to give you some tips for how to manage alcohol during your holiday. This graphic I made doesn't look as clean on the screen as I thought it did. But I will, because you probably can't read on the phone, I'm going to walk you through each one here. So step one is just eat the way you've been taught in the program leading up to it, right? Have that high protein, low carb lunch, maybe that big ass salad with meat I talk about, which just allows you to plan for extra calories when you go into the party, maybe drinking, right? Second one is just to have a plan. How much will you drink? Set some ground rules for it. Because if all bets are off going in, you're likely, even with the best of intentions, you're likely to overindulge. So maybe have a drink limit, maybe sacrifice a bit of dessert if you want to drink more, that kind of thing. And then in terms of choosing your drinks, beer and wine are, higher carb. You can have a dry wine in some cases, of course, but 0 to low calorie mixers like your diet drinks with the hard liquors, hard spirits, that tends to be the best combo. Although champagne is the lowest in calories among any booze out there. So if you're balling out, champagne's not a bad idea. All right. And then the last one is just to avoid those post-drinking food binges, right? Where you hit the hot dog cart, or you do something crazy because your inhibitions are gone. So it's wise to eat a healthy meal before you go out, before you go to the party. Have some rules around what you plan to do and what you plan to not do. And that should set you up okay, even if you do have a few drinks, right? AC zone. AC. Like it, Ainsley. All right, so that should cover off what we wanted to talk about today. There was one other thing, and that is how to stay on track. So you may have seen my email yesterday where I'm watching the Jets on the line this December to give me some sort of incentive to stick to my plan. So if I don't lose weight during this month, I'm foregoing and watching any more games the rest of the year. And this is something I really enjoy doing. So it has to be something you enjoy enough to, if you lose it, it's going to really drive you, motivate you, right? So either a reward or a consequence like this. A reward could be maybe a spotty at the end if you lose 5 pounds. I do recommend making the goal process-based, where it's more on, I'm going to complete 12 workouts this month. If I do that, then I get this reward. More so than trying to tie it to weight loss like I'm doing, because rarely do we control the outcome. The weight loss is secondary. We control the process, what we do every day, every week. We don't so much control the end result, or in the time it's going to take to do that. All right. So that kind of leads into this, right? The carrot versus the stick, the reward versus the consequence. So everyone's wired a little differently. Like if you're more motivated by potential loss, then you would take the stick and put some money on the line or some sort of something on the line, like I did with the Jets, right? Something that's going to cost you in the end if you don't follow through your commitments. If you're more motivated by some sort of reward, then you choose the carrot and you schedule a spa day for yourself that you're going to have to cancel at the end if you don't reach your set goal for the month. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. So final game plan, decide on the days you're going to enjoy yourself this month, even pencil them in on your calendar, plan ahead, eat lower carb, lower calorie going into them. If you really want to get the most of this, if you're feeling like you're just going to break even the next few weeks, then just make those 2 days off plan, don't stress it, and then just go back to your regular scheduled programming afterwards. And then the last piece, set up that consequence or reward. And a lot of you responded with your goal and reward or consequence set with it. Highly recommend you do that. Far more likely to reach your goals if you do that. I promise you that, okay? All right, so before we get to a little bit of the Q&A, I'm looking for your hand because Mitchmas Claus is coming. So I've got a Oura Ring. This is a $300 value US, where you put on you just wear it like a ring, and it tracks the quality of your sleep and a few other metrics. It's a really cool thing. I've been using it myself, and it shows you, and gives you some tips on how to improve your sleep quality, that kind of thing. So I'm giving it away to one of you who makes the most introductions in the next few weeks, right through January 15th, because I know introducing a friend to fitness right now is probably not top of mind for a lot of people. So you do have until the 15th, and I can show you the email template I use. It's non-intrusive. It just gives them a freebie to put their foot into the door with me, and then they can take the next step if they so choose. So just think of a few people in your circle that needs help. And an introduction, I'll put you on the scoreboard. And at the end, whoever makes the most introductions is going to get this cool device here, $300 worth. All right, very good. So let's see if I can get back to my screen. This is interesting. Okay. Worst time for this. Very confusing. Okay. So I'm going to look at it. So hope you can see me. I can't see anything here, but I'm going to go to the chat. And if you have any questions for me, fire them off here now. Okay. By the way, I'm in my basement gym, if you can't tell. Okay. So you can see me somewhere on the screen that I'm doing this right. Probably should have practiced this at some point. That would have been a good idea. If you have a question that can't be answered in the chat box, if we're unable to put the workout in, should we be on low carb days? Zeb asks. I would say it's always good to pair your activity levels to your carb intake and vice versa. So if you're looking to minimize the damage and you don't work out, and I would recommend going low carb. Again, if it's Christmas Day, no, that's when you're gonna enjoy yourself. Yeah, train asks about carb cycling. Yeah, same premise applies here, right? Where on the days leading up to your special event, Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, then you would have those lower carb days. I like to stack them up 3 in a row. That's what really is going to deplete those stores. Try not to sound too sciencey here. So when you do that, then you can have a big buffer for more calories on that one day. And there's kind of an overcompensation effect. Your storage fills up first and metabolism increases. So the next day you have a little bit of an after effect. That's the theory anyway. Okay. Don't you love my ceiling? Like it's watching the first thing showing up here. All right, good. So Zeb's asking about vacation. Again, guys, if you have questions and you found the chat box, I hope, then you can write it in there, or I can unmute you and you can ask it yourself. I don't really know how that works, but that's the theory. Okay, so Zeb's the vacation question. If we can't work outside, you can always have time for a workout outside, Zeb. There's 10 minutes in your day for squats, push-ups, and sit-ups, absolutely. But if not, drive your calories down, right? It's just that pair your calorie intake to activity and vice versa. Train asks, deplete simple carbs. Nope, same thing there. Complex or simple doesn't really matter. Keep them under 100 grams for the day, 3 days in a row. So if you're used to higher carb and you're training, obviously like you're training with that name, then it's gonna be tough, honestly. But the 3rd day, especially if you're doing those workouts, you may want to temper your expectations in the gym for those days. But it'll pay off on the day of when you have a bigger buffer. Okay. Don't be shy, girls. There's lots of girls on here. They're not asking questions. Okay. All right. I promised to be done by 8:30, so we're ahead of the game. If there's anyone that has to ask a question without the texting part, I can unmute you. Just let me know. All right. Ron and Peggy's. Okay, there you go. It's funny what it names these things. Okay. All right. So Train's question was answered. I'll give you another minute if you got anything else for me. Otherwise, I just want to reiterate the point of, brown fat. There are some scans. Unfortunately, I don't know whose name this is. It just says iPhone. How do you find out if you have brown fat? Well, Mary Lou. There are some scans, and I'll message you afterwards with that. They're not easy to come by, mind you. Typically, you'll know if you've got a fast metabolism, you're high in brown fat. But you can create it. I've certainly changed mine by consistently doing sauna and cold therapy. Working out a lot helps. And I'll show you a few different ways. All right, Train, how much does fat grams come into play when preparing for an event? I like to keep fat especially low, and clients complain about this all the time, but fat is the most likely to be stored as fat. Hence the name, right? So on the low carb days, I don't increase fat to compensate. That's how keto does it. You still want to get results with that, but I prefer to really drive calories down. So fat has to stay within, I mean, every person is a little bit different, but I keep it constant. So probably on a low carb day for you, I'm going to say 50, 60 grams at most, so that it's still like less than 30% of total calories comes from fat. Okay. But what I like, to emphasize even at the fun dinner is choosing more of the carb heavy foods, right? Not the really fatty stuff. Because once you get really high in fat and carbs, that's when you get into trouble. Okay. So most of the calories from protein. Yeah, unfortunately, yes. So for you, train, if you're pushing 210 pounds, we'll say roughly 200 grams of protein, possibly even more if you're getting really hungry, that's what you'd reach for. 100 grams of carbs, 50 grams of fat. So that protein is 50% of calories for those 3 days anyway. I wouldn't recommend that all the time, of course. All right. So hopefully I haven't bored anyone else with tears who's on here, but I think I answered Train's question well enough. Right, Train? The brown fat thing is very interesting though, because I found my metabolism was horrible, right? That's how I got into the 260-pound range that I was in after high school. And, I was a really sedentary person, but moving more, getting out. Yeah, brown fat. Yeah, I don't want to complicate people with brown fat. I do an article on this, David. I will send it to you. I just can't link it right now. So let me make a note of that. Because this is not all fat is created equal. Brown fat cells, white fat cells, you want more brown because it's metabolically active. A baby is really high in brown fat because it keeps them alive, keeps them warm. So we tend to lose that as adults because we stop being active. We don't sleep as well. We don't exercise. Oh, I already mentioned that one. And we just have an easy life, right? So we don't want it to be too easy. And I'll show you why. So I'll send that to you after this. I'll link it in the group. Okay. White fat isn't necessarily visceral fat there, Train. No. White fat can be visceral, but it also can be that stubborn stuff that's hanging. Yeah. Brown fat doesn't have that really dense, fluffy look to it. It sort of models muscle in that respect. Yeah, sauna is one way for brown fat. Not as significant as other ways, but it does help with that. Sauna is just a good thing to do for your own sanity, but there are some benefits for heart health that they're coming out with. Big Fish study showed that people who use the sauna 2 or more times a week, less likely to die, better heart health, and longevity. So if you got access to a sauna, I'd recommend adding that in a couple times a week, even as a kind of a post-exercise not cool down, but relaxation thing. I tend to try to sneak that in at least once a week. All right, there's Rhonda Patrick is the researcher who has a YouTube video on that, which is really cool. Zab, you're a member for life. You can't come off. That's the problem. I can give you some general recommendations, and you'll be fine on your own to a certain extent. I mean, you know what to do. It's always a matter of adjusting course, because your calories that you can lose on now, at say 200 pounds, you've got to adjust that 180 pounds. Those same calories won't work simply because your body weight is lower. Your resting metabolism should be a little bit lower. You don't want it to be too much lower. You want muscle to kind of be factored in there to close that gap. But what got you from 200 to 180 won't get you 160. I'm not talking about you in particular. That's just general comment. All right. Okay, very good. Appreciate you guys tuning in here, using this new service, because 25% of my members do not have Facebook. So I was used to doing the video in there. It was really convenient for people, but not for everybody. So I appreciate if you have any feedback on this, if it's good, bad, or otherwise, or if you prefer the Facebook, we can always look to get back on there. But this pretty much has everything we need, I believe. Okay. Poor mic quality, yeah. I think I broke my mic, so I'm using my